Hi, y'all. Today we are going to be listening to Tool Descending. So, I have some thoughts on this song that I really wanted to share. It's not going to be my first time hearing the song. This is probably one of my favorite, all time favorite Tool songs. I am a big Tool fan. I absolutely love this band. My partner even proposed to me at a Tool concert. So, yeah, this is my favorite band. So if you're looking for a first time reaction, you're in the wrong place. But if you're looking to geek out and maybe talk about Tool songs and maybe my interpretations of them, I would love to hear your interpretations. So yeah, I just have a lot of thoughts on this song. It means a lot to me. My basic overarching theme that I think that this song is about is the collapse of human civilization and our extinction. So let's get into it. So before the music comes in, I just want to say that the sounds of the wind and the water, I think, are intentional. I mean, obviously, like they're intentional, they put them there, but I think that they're intentional it's like integral to the meaning of the song, or at least my interpretation of the meaning of the song. When we think about the collapse of human civilization, the biggest threat is climate change. Whether you believe in man-made climate change or not, I think that we can all agree that pollution is bad. That the ripping apart of and destroying of ecosystems is bad, and the extinction of animals that help support that ecosystem is bad because we as humans are part of that ecosystem, and it all goes together. And if things start falling out of that process, there's cascading effects, and we will be affected. And it's really naive, and it's a lot of hubris, if I'm being honest. It's a little bit arrogant to think that we would not be affected in any kind of way about that. But the fact is that the climate is changing, and even the people who argue against man-made climate change can recognize that. They just think it's for other reasons, whether it's the sun, Milankovitch cycles, whatever. And I'm not here to debate that with you. I think that if you're at that point, it's really not worth debating about, if I'm being honest, because the point is the climate is changing, and we aren't helping, and we aren't prepared either for those effects. And I mean, billionaires are being prepared. They're buying fucking bunkers and shit. They think that's going to save them. But anyway, so I think the ocean sounds, you think of rising sea levels. I think that is done with the intent to kind of cue you in of, hey, we're talking about the earth here. We're talking about the systems, the global systems that we've built here on earth coming to a collapse. So let's talk about that. Free fall through our midnight, this epilogue of our own fable. So, epilogue meaning it's like, so an epilogue is like the end portion of like a book or a story. It's the after, the very end, right? And of our own fable, the human story. So, we are at the end of our human story. Heedless in our slumber, floating nescient, we fall through this boundlessness, this madness of our own making. So, first, heedless in our slumber. So, heedless means to be like reckless with something, to be, not paying attention. So, we're not paying attention. We're being reckless in our slumber. We are like asleep at the wheel here. We are like zombies, especially with social media and overconsumption. Like everybody needs the next car, the next piece of clothing, the next Stanley Cup, the next piece of, phone, iPad technology. And we are doing so very recklessly at the expense of our environment. Floating nescient. So he's going to use this idea of floating. So we are floating at this point in human civilization. And nescient is another word for like ignorant. We are unaware. We are not paying attention. And then we free fall through this boundlessness, this madness of our own making. All of these systems, all of these problems we've created. So I think Maynard here is talking about man-made climate change, man-made systems, man-made everything. I would love to freaking talk to Maynard about some of his songs and some of like the way he writes them. But I also am like, he'll probably like just be like, yeah, no. But this is what I feel like he's talking about when I hear these lyrics. Falling isn't flying. Floating isn't infinite. So if you've ever gone skydiving, I've gone skydiving. It's super crazy and fun, but you fall at first, but then it does start to feel like you're just kind of floating. But he's saying floating isn't flying. We aren't flying here. We are floating. And floating isn't infinite. It isn't forever. It will not last forever. Our resources on this earth are not infinite. They are finite. They are limited. You cannot have infinite growth, which is what our current sort of capitalist consumption needs to continue. It's not sustainable. It needs infinite growth to be sustained to the people in power's liking. And Maynard here is saying that that's not possible. And I love when he says that, like all as he's saying this, everything is slowed down, even sometimes distorted. And it helps you not pay attention to the lyrics that he's saying. We aren't paying attention to the warning signs. And his voice is kind of like echoey, just, far away. And so it's easy to not pay attention to what he's saying unless you have the lyrics directly in front of you. Because he's using his voice, like he always uses his voice like an instrument, but really there's a purpose to why I feel like he's singing the way he's singing. And that's to cause you to not be paying attention to what he's saying. He's saying it so slow and drawn out and so echoey. And then after he says falling isn't flying, floating isn't infinite, you get this bass and this guitar chords coming in, and it really feels like now you're falling. Now we're falling, and you feel yourself falling through the music. And you'll also notice that Maynard's voice now comes in a lot more clearer now that we're really truly feeling the free fall.
Suddenly hail our lethargy, concede suddenly to the quicken disillusion. Pray we mitigate the ruin, calling all to warmth and order.
Come, our end suddenly, all hail our lethargy. So, our end, it's going to happen, slowly then all at once. And so it's going to feel sudden because we've been very lethargic. So, all hail our lethargy. Lethargy, as in, we are asleep, we aren't paying attention, we are in like a sort of zombified state, especially with like social media. And sometimes it's like economic, sometimes you don't have time to be activated. We're all very kind of just lethargic. I mean, being bombarded by all the things that we are bombarded with, especially online, is not something that our brains were evolved to be able to cope with or handle. So sometimes it's just easier to just dissociate from it. Concede suddenly to the quickened disillusion. So concede, as in to give in, you're just giving into it, suddenly to the quickened dissolution. So first off, I love how the drums quicken and they pick up when he starts saying quicken. So you actually feel it in the music, this sort of building anxiety that's happening, right? And disillusion, meaning, the end, the conclusion. So we are giving in to it. And it's going to happen quicker and quicker. We're going to accelerate towards our end, is essentially what that's saying. And when you are in free fall, you are also accelerating. You're reaching a sort of terminal velocity. And I kind of feel like that's analogous here with the way that we are accelerating towards our end. Pray we mitigate the ruin, calling all to arms in order. So we need to get out of this lethargy in order to mitigate the ruin. So calling all to arms in order, I think, can have two meanings. The first being, calling us to arms in order, like the working class, the regular people, to wake up, to rise up and dismantle the system, because the powers that be are way too invested in perpetuating it. It also could mean how the crisis that we are accelerating towards, it increases geopolitical conflict. So, when we have an increased natural disasters in the world, like with India, like India is not going to be habitable for much longer. We're having increasingly more and more places that are increasingly becoming less and less habitable for humans, and much less for other animals too. And that is going to lead to people migrating out of those countries, because people aren't just going to sit there and die. They are going to try to leave. They are going to try to, survive. It's a natural human instinct is to survive. But what does it do? That's increasing migration. That's limiting resources. You're going to have conflicts. And so it could be the whole calling arms in order is the sort of geopolitical response to the climate crisis. There's projected like water wars, because none of the things that we have on this earth are, unlimited, especially not for the rate that we're going. So I think that it could have a double meaning there. Could be calling us, just regular folks to arms in order to demand change, or it could be the powers that be calling everybody to arms in order as a result of everything.
Mitigate the ruin, calling all to warmth and order. Driven
so before we pick up again, drifting through this boundlessness, this madness. So there seems to be no bounds to the system that we've built. It's just like we think it's infinite, right? But it's not. It's madness to think that. And it's of our own making. We have done this to ourselves. Sound our dire reveille. Rouse all from our apathy, lest we cease to be. So sound our dire reveille. A reveille is an alarm, usually used for armed forces to rouse or wake them up, to get them going. Rouse us all from our apathy. Like we're, as a culture, as a species, as a society, we are very apathetic to the goings on in the world, whether it's geopolitically, whether that is our current state of the climate crisis. So we are kind of in like a self-induced apathy between social media, between being stuck in these like economic systems, maybe where all you can think about is to just put food on the table. All you can think about is how you're going to get your next meal, how you're going to make rent, how you're going to balance your jobs in this, ever decaying society and economy. And you kind of have to you don't really have the luxury or the time to think about what else is going on, because right now you're just worried about you and yours, your family, that kind of thing. But we need to rouse out of that apathy, lest we cease to be. If we don't awake, we don't wake up to the bullshit, the pointlessness, the madness of the society that we've built and how it hurts people and ultimately will kill us all, we need to get out of this apathy, because otherwise we will cease to exist. So stir us from our wanton slumber, mitigate our ruin, call us all to arms and order. So stir us from our wanton slumber. Wanton means like deliberate, willful. So you could think of this as like from our willful ignorance. Like a lot of us are staying ignorant because it's just more convenient. Whether that's emotionally convenient, financially convenient, whatever, it's just more convenient to not deal with these problems head on. But we need to, in order to mitigate our ruin. So he's saying, call us all to arms in order. All of us who are asleep, all of us who aren't paying attention, all of us who are willfully ignorant, all of us who are helping prop up this system. We need to wake up and realize, or it might be too late. So let's keep going.
Mitigate our ruin, call us all to arms in order.
So sound the dread alarm through the primal body. So that is, I think, your fight or flight, your survival instinct. Because when you're in that sort of life and death situation that, like a natural disaster can bring, that's a very primal feeling. That's a very ancient, primordial sort of feeling that we've had since hunter-gatherer days, since the day that we were living in, since the days of us living in caves. That dread alarm that he's talking about is a very primal feeling. Okay, then sound the reveille, to be or not to be. We already talked about what a reveille is, but to be or not to be, we are beings. To be is like the sort of like I think, therefore I am. To be human is to be. So to be or not to be, that is like to survive or not survive. That's to exist or not exist, extinction or survival. Rise, stay the grand finale, stay the reading of our swan song and epilogue. So again, the human story, we are about to reach our grand finale, our grand conclusion. It's our swan song, it's our epilogue, it's the end. One drive to stay alive, elementary, muster every fiber, mobilize, stay alive. So again, it's that primal feeling of survival. It's elementary, it's in our DNA, it's wired in us to want to survive. Mobilize. In order to survive the climate crisis, like we have to mobilize. We have to get to band together and demand change. And that requires a lot of work that people just either aren't willing to do, aren't capable of doing. There's not enough of us fighting for that, advocating for that. And then again, stir us from our wanton slumber, mitigate our ruin, call us all to arms and order. And I think what this whole thing is, because the intensity of the music you hear, it gets like way more intense when that dread alarm happens. And I think this is, maybe Maynard saying, by the time that we feel that survival instinct, that let's fight for our planet, our survival, it'll be too late. This dread alarm is going to go off far too late for us to make it out of it as a species. And I think that he hammers that last bit in when the next bit is just all music. He never comes back in to sing. This is the last that we hear of him singing in the song. So it's the human voice truly dies out. And we see this big rise and escalation in the music that'll happen. And I think that that's like the human fighting to survive. Because, I think at some point we will realize, oh, fuck, we need to do something. But we should have done it like 20 years ago. And I think it'll be too late. And I think Maynard thinks that too. I mean, again, this is all speculation on my part. This is just the way I felt when I listened to the song. But the fact that he doesn't come in is what really hammered home for me that this is about our extinction as a species. Because then after the big rise and climax of music, which, you could say insinuates a big battle for survival, there's this just quiet, and it's very echoey. It's very like, it almost makes me feel of like time echoes of time, like geologic time. And then the music starts to build back up again. And I think that signifies, new life. Like we've had many mass extinctions on this planet, and life has always bounced back from that. And I think that that's what the music is signifying, is that life will come back. Life will bounce back. It's just not going to have us in it. It's not going to have a human voice in it. Because Maynard never comes back into the song. And that's just how I've interpreted this part of the song. And so part of me wonders too if that last like build up and everything of the music was maybe even like a future intelligent race making the same mistakes, like maybe, or maybe it's just another, just more life on Earth, not even intelligent. They don't have a voice, but then an extinction happens again because it's just these cycles that keep happening. Because it goes quiet again, the ocean comes through again. I don't know exactly, but I do think that the big thing is that it's about our human extinction. And I think Maynard not choosing to not come back into the song is deliberate in to send that message personally. Now I've heard and read theories of people thinking it's like about mental health, like descending, your mental state and feeling like the calling to arms in order is to fight like depression and suicidal thoughts or different things like that. And I can see that. It's just when I first heard this song and every time I hear this song, that's not what comes to my head. And I just wanted to get my thoughts out there of what I think this song means, what it means to me. Again, I would love to talk to Maynard and know like what he was thinking about when he wrote this song, and maybe even the other band members what they were thinking about when they wrote this song. Like I would love like a docu series about this song from the band personally. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Again, if you would disagree or you have other interpretations, I would love to hear them. Please let me know in the comments. But also to let me know what you think about this take, because I at least haven't seen this take much at all, maybe. So yeah, I'm curious to know what other people think. And I think a lot of people maybe choose to not talk about this because the whole idea of like climate change and the climate crisis is such like a hot button issue, but it's also an important issue in my opinion. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks. See you guys later. Bye. I don't know if how Tool is with copyright stuff. So this video is going to first be uploaded in full on my Patreon. If you want to consider joining my Patreon, the link will be in the description. But eventually I will post it onto YouTube as well, where most of you are probably watching it right now. I might have to cut some of the audio or mute some of the audio. I just dealing with copyright. I'm trying to figure out the best way to get around it, especially right now where my channel is under review for monetization. And I know like too many copyright issues can like affect that. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure this out. If I don't know how other reactors do it. So if y'all have any tips, please let me know. The biggest tip I've gotten so far is just to cut some stuff out and start a Patreon. So that's what I've done. But yeah, if there's anything else, any additional tips on dealing with this stuff, please let me know. I also post videos that are not reaction videos. This channel has no niche. It's very much a variety channel. I just post kind of what I want. And I also react to videos to talk about what I think it means, the interpretations of it. Because like why else would you make music if it's not to like create meaning and dialogue? So yeah, that's really what this channel is.